I'll just get to work. I still can't tell if there's any sound. Oh my God. All right. Can you hear me? Okay. I think it's when I got a phone call, it shut it off. So I'm gonna try one thing. Tell me if it stops working. I'm gonna put it on. Oh wait, never mind. I already have it on Do Not Disturb. So we're good. All right. So I said a bunch of stuff. Don't worry about it. All right. So I'm gonna put this snake away. I'll show you one more time. Very pretty snake. Real twitchy though. This guy eats a lot. Real bitey animal. Not bad bitey. He just wants to eat. It's kind of how rock rattlesnakes are. They make a lot of sound and they'll kind of escape. So if you run into a wild rock rattlesnake, what typically happens is it'll, a lot of times you don't even see it. You just hear something in the grass that sounds like that and then it disappears. So that's typical. Okay. This one is a mottled rock rattlesnake. This one, oh yeah, he's one to eat. He's just coming straight out. Coming straight out wanting to get into it. Let me move this over here, I'll show you. He's like, give me food. So I'm doing a couple of things here. So, oh look at him. Yeah, he's like, do you have a mouse? This is not, well I guess this is kind of an aggressive snake because he's coming out thinking I have food for him. I don't, buddy, you're already kind of chunky. This is a midget-faded rattlesnake. This is an exceptionally toxic snake too. It has a neurotoxin called concholertaxin that would be bad news, but this guy, no problems. This is actually a decently sized one. It's a big male. This one was gifted to us from a university. I'm not sure if they want me to say which one. When it was a little teeny tiny baby. And that takes some work to feed and get it to grow, but that was years and years ago. So happy to report it's doing just fine. Eats really well. Sheds. There's a shed skin. So anyway, I am leaving in 2 weeks to go to India, which is going to be exciting, to hopefully catch some cobras. And part of that is going to be doing relocation calls, which is going to be pretty exciting. Kind of like what is here, where there's a snake at somebody's house and we get called to go out there. I have a friend out there that has a counterpart. I'm going with a group. I'm not sure how much they want me to say too, but I'll check on that because I think it'd be a really fun video to make. Where we go out and catch, just like we would a diamondback back here, go catch a king cobra out there. Obviously, I'm going to have a lot to learn about, but in my earlier conversations, it's interesting how much the challenges with the community are similar to ours. Completely different culture, completely different animals and challenges, but in some ways very similar to the same kind of educational and cultural challenges that we face with snakes. So it's kind of nice to hear about that, to get some context. Yeah, it won't be anything like Arizona for sure. Looking forward to it. That's a lot of long flights, I know that much. But I've been to Asia before. Alright, here it is, one more time. Who's your favorite rattlesnake? So we might be working on something kind of cool. I'm not going to say really much about it yet, but all these enclosures that we're working on, that you see us working with, there's a lot of things when I'm working in them that like, I wish it did this, and I wish it had that. And just the differences that show up when you're working with venomous things versus not venomous things that are like little things. Like, for example, if these were full of leopard geckos, you just open it up and change it. But in these, there's a lot of math involved. And by math, I mean every time that you open the enclosure, you have an exposure, you have a chance to be bit. So you have to think about processes outside of your own abilities or talent and knowledge, all that stuff. You have to come up with processes that assume failure. So that's kind of what I'm looking at doing in some of this stuff in this room. So everything you're seeing here are those processes that are, you know, how can you make it so you open the cages less often but keep everything clean and healthy? How can you make it so that when you do that, you never have to be within a certain distance of any open air or any open air between you and a snake? So kind of had some interesting meetings yesterday about, or an interesting meeting about that we might talk about later. This is not a venomous snake in here. So yeah, not doing anything bad. Let me show you what's in here. Where is he? Oh my gosh, where'd he go? Where's my guy? Oh, here he is, okay. Not venomous. One of the few non-venomous snakes that we have. This is a Arizona mountain king snake. Beautiful one too. And this is a future video that we are making, is how when people see this, like if you're on a hiking group or something on Facebook and people see this, you instantly see a whole bunch of people that just start talking about, you know, red touch yellow, red touch black, Jack is dead. You know, I know what the rhymes are, but most people don't. Most people get them wrong, or a lot of people get them wrong. So obviously this is not a harmful snake. This is not a coral snake. It's an example of one of the snakes that people may use those rhymes to try and to tell if something's harmful or not. But you'd be surprised how often that fails. And you end up with somebody that's holding a coral snake because they heard from that grandpa rhyme that it's not venomous. So they'll make an appearance in another video. Much easier to keep than a venomous snake. Because I can reach in there. Those are good things. I can just reach in there. Alright, who we got over here? They don't need it. This is the twin spotted rattlesnakes. I'll just show you them actually. They're sitting there real cute together right now. I'll take this thing off. This thing's awesome. I got this. So we kind of are getting some sponsors, but we're doing it in a kind of a useful way, because this is the mount that we use for this stuff, and it's awesome because it's a magnet, so I just stick stuff on there and pull it off. So if you see these green things on our chest when we're walking around, that's what that is. All right, see him there? It's not very focused. I don't think I can control focus with this very well, unfortunately. But those are twin spotted rattlesnakes hanging out there together. They don't need any more work right now. I just worked on their enclosure the other day, and they are just fine. Most of the time, these animals are going to do best if you just leave them alone. I mean, they're not, we don't really treat them like pets. They're not here to serve. Well, I mean, they are doing work. They're helping us do education with people, but, you know, I certainly enjoy keeping them, but we keep a distance, I guess, mentally. And part of that is that we just don't really play with them. And I guess you could consider this, you know, just showing them doing this as doing something unnecessary, you know, but you know what I'm doing, yeah. It's a little different than it would be if it is a, you know, standard pet snake. here are 2 sidewinders. These are snakes that came from a place near where Jeff's at that is no longer there. So this is a breeding pair, and yeah, from a population that no longer exists. So this is kind of one of those cases where, you know, obviously we would prefer these animals to be in the wild, but you don't always have that luxury in a fast developing state like this, where that wild area is just not there anymore. Right. That was the male. Here's the female. Small snakes, but that's what sidewinders do. Just not very big. And they do cohabitate. A lot of snakes we will not. Rattlesnakes can and will die from self-inflicted bites or bites from their own species. So we have to really watch that when we're feeding these. You know, just being very careful about that. So just because they can, that doesn't mean that they don't have. There's you get in trouble here sometimes because people take exception to that. Like, well, they can't die from the venom; it's from a bruise or something. I mean, they do. That's a fact. Is that they have a strong resistance to the venom, but it can be fatal, and it does cause death in some of those snakes. So it's something that we avoid. They don't have immunity; they have resistance. And there's other reasons for that too, about the way that the snake even stores venom in its venom glands. If I'm reciting this correctly, this is something I learned at a conference last year. The tissue and cells in the venom glands are almost similar to what's in your stomach for producing acid. So it stores venom in there at a certain pH at which it's not dangerous, it's inert. Once it changes that pH though, then it becomes active. And that's one of the ways that they can store it pretty much indefinitely in their venom glands and not be affected by it. Different than immunity or resistance. Something else I've thought about that might help get rid of the calcium scaling on these bowls is I use these ceramic bowls. You know, the reason I didn't use plastic ones was a few reasons, but one of them is that they spill. So we'll sit on top of it, and that's the last thing you want to do is in an enclosure and I'm out of town and it spills its water all over the place in there. Then it doesn't have any water and opens itself up to respiratory infections and other problems, that kind of thing. These are dry desert animals, so there's a lot of reasons why I don't want to be doing that. But that could be something I consider. I don't want all the waste, but these things are just looking awful, so it might be something I have to consider. It hasn't really bothered me before because I wasn't doing stuff like this. It's pretty much, you know, behind the scenes. All right, so I might not pull this one out. This is a ridge-nosed rattlesnake, and she is hiding right now. So if I can't see her with just a little bit of manipulation, then I'm going to let her go ahead and continue hiding. I'm not going to pull her out of there. How are the Kenetrex? They're exceptional boots. I would love to get a sponsorship from them, honestly. I went through this is not about snakes, sorry, but I went through a journey, I'd say, of going through different boots. I have really white feet, I have like duck feet. And we're outside constantly on hot ground, hot sharp rocks, climbing mountains. So I could buy like, you know, get a brand new pair of Merrills and throw it in the trash in 3 weeks. It wouldn't survive a single hike. So I was looking for something that would work, and these will last me about 6 months before I send them in to have the soles repaired, but that is the best boot that I've ever had in my life. So I'm really happy with them, super comfortable. They're expensive, but you know, boots are important. They're arguably your most important tool if you're doing any kind of outdoor work. So to me, it is entirely worth it. Another thing too is I have 2 pairs of them. I have the insulated version and the non-insulated. The reason why I get insulated boots in Arizona, people get surprised about that, it's hot outside, why are you getting insulated boots? You should get breathable boots. If the ground is 160 degrees, you don't want breathable. You're just heating it up. You're sweating, but it doesn't help. So insulation can work both ways. I don't have any problems with it. Never had any problems with my feet. Okay, he's in there. Can you come out so I can give you more water? You don't. He doesn't want to come out. That's the other ridge-nosed rattlesnake. Okay, what do we got in here? We got a big twin spot. I'll show you. Let's have the question over there. Well, Bob, I hope you see one. I mean, if you're outside, it depends on when you come, but yeah, get in touch. Maybe I'll help you out. Yeah, I thought about getting, and that's something I could do, is just fill up some other bottles with water that doesn't come from the well, but it seems like a complicated answer to a cosmetic problem that I'm dealing with. But, the more we're going to be doing stuff like this, those cosmetic problems end up becoming real problems. The last thing we need is for somebody to be, how the pet trade industry is. We don't need somebody thinking that we don't take care of stuff. Okay. Let's see if we can show you this. This, he doesn't want to stay on there very well. I'll get the phone instead. This is a twin spot rattlesnake. This is one of my favorite little snakes, not just because it's a, protected and kept under license, and it's something that we're real proud of that we get to do that. But the cool thing is that this little snake is probably the biggest snake husbandry challenge of my life, where we had our first clutch of these born in our care a few years ago now, and this little guy was like, I was sure it was going to die. Sorry, it's a girl. I was sure it was going to die. It was this little wrinkly slug that was like, I don't know, 3.5 inches. It was just so ridiculously small and just did not look like it was cut out for life. So I had this thing. I made custom tubes out of soda straws, and with, like an inch of available room for air, I hand fed this thing parts of mice, because a pinky mouse was way too big. So I hand fed it with tweezers, basically, little tiny mouse arms and stuff. And then it started eating on its own, and then it started hunting on its own. And now it has the best feed response of any of our twin spots, and she's just a beast. So super happy about how that worked out. It's so hard to keep those little things alive. There were two. We have two of them, and then there was a larger one that if you are in Cave Creek or anything, you've seen Rattlesnake Ranch, AZ. That's their twin spot is this one's sibling. It's her brother. So that's why we have them, so that we can start to give these animals to facilities and educational organizations that, that need twin spotted rattlesnakes. And that way, nobody needs to get them out of the wild. That's kind of our hope, is that, we went and collected her parents from the wild for that purpose, with the intent that those are the last ones that need to be collected from the wild. I could get an RO system for in here. It still would have some issues though. So I might, one thing I could do is we have one in the house. We're on Dell, so that's the problem, but I could just fill up some tanks and see if I can get them out here and do that once a week or something like that. But we'll see. Another answer is I buy twice as many of these things as I need, and then just rotate them out like I'm doing the dishes, and then I can do some more advanced, cleaning and scaling. That's another concern I have too. I guess the only one that's not cosmetic is that there's a lot of surfaces in there, so I really clean these things as good as I can. But if there's a lot of texture in there, that can get more challenging to do that. Okay, I got one more snake to clean today, and then I'm done. This one's a little hard to deal with. You might be surprised at which snake is the one that is the hardest to deal with in here. It's probably very surprising which one of these is the most challenging snake in the collection to get on a hook and stay there. This is a massasauga. It's a desert massasauga. These are very gentle tools that I use, but she does not like sitting on a hook. Massasaugas are a different genus than the other rattlesnakes. They are cistrurus, and the rattlesnakes are crotalus, and they act pretty different. They're similar to the pygmy rattlesnakes you might see in other places. Part of that difference in behavior is that they don't tend to just kind of curl up in a defensive coil, a nice orderly coil that I can just stick a hook in and stay there. They just try to get away, so over and over. So they're a little challenging in that way. And she is. She's doing good now. Can you go in there? That's an adult too. She's not going to get any bigger than that. Just a little. All right. Still. So when I go out of town, everything goes on standby mode, kind of. So I turn off some of the ventilation. I change some of the lighting so that they're basically just. I simulate estivation basically. If it's in the summer, it makes it real easy. If it's in the winter, it's really easy. If I'm going to, when we're going to Peru, it's super easy to get everything to go down because they're just hibernating. We just get them to, turning off everything, make it a steady, 50 degrees in here, and I'll see you later. But in summer, it's a little different. So summer snakes do something called estivation, which is similar to hibernation, where they go and hide away from it. So we emulate that in here. I'll make it about 75 or 80 degrees in here. I'll keep their day-night cycles on, but I'll turn off their heat, and I'm not going to feed anything. And that'll last about 3 weeks for that. They'll have water in there. I'm turning off the ventilation. It's going to be a little bit more humid in here than it normally is, and then just very stable. And that's a good environment. I just installed a backup air conditioning unit. We have a second backup air conditioning unit, so it should be pretty good that way. Tiger rattlesnakes have a very toxic and difficult venom. One of the things is that just because something is incredibly toxic doesn't mean that if somebody's bitten by it is incredibly dangerous. There's a lot of different ways that toxicity and treatability and just how much venom, what the strike is itself. Do they give a lot of venom? Do they tend to even bite? So tiger rattlesnakes are one of those that's like up there in potential for damage that doesn't always translate into damage. Mojave rattlesnakes are kind of similar in that way actually, to where in case studies of bites, even though Mojave rattlesnakes are very toxic, a big western diamondback is probably worse. Canebrake rattlesnakes, the timber rattlesnakes from kind of the southeastern part of the country where there's some neurotoxin in there, and eastern diamondbacks kill more people than Mojaves and western diamondbacks, I think, combined. I think prairie rattlesnakes are up there too. There's actually an interesting paper that just came out about segregation of the venom along certain lines in the Northeast. So there's kind of two different types of venom for prairie rattlesnakes. But they end up killing relatively a lot of people. We're still talking about 0 to 2 each year. But they're up there in those death tolls just because they're in places where people are. So every year, you'll see a story coming out about somebody bitten in Colorado in these grasslands. And the reason for that is it's pretty simple. It's not that the snakes are more aggressive or anything. It's that it's these big rolling grasslands and just a trail in it. It's literally the only clearing that they have. So the snakes and rodents and everything gather along the edge of those things, which is also where we run and hike. And yeah, it's a complicated thing. I know I was kind of rambling there. It was about tiger rattlesnake venom, but complicated answer. Are there certain types of rattlesnakes that are more threatened than others? Yes. So I'm going to answer this, and I'm going to get out of here because I've got a bunch of other work to do. It's not going to work for this, but some rattlesnakes are more. They're specialized for certain environments, and those environments themselves are under threat. So the biggest change to one of those, I'd say, in the United States, there's 2 critically imperiled endangered species that are rattlesnakes. One of those is an eastern massasauga, and the other is the New Mexico ridge-nosed rattlesnake. Eastern massasaugas, they both are having problems with habitat loss. It's not like people are going out and killing them, it's that they literally don't have any place to live. So in the northeastern United States and southeastern Canada, you know what that looks like. It's cities, agriculture, draining of wetlands, the changing nature of those wetlands themselves. So there are still lots of places that they're found, but they are, long-term probably not going to succeed. And then in the southwestern United States, there's the Arizona or the New Mexico ridge-nosed rattlesnake. In the United States, it lives in 2 mountain ranges: Palencia Mountains, the Animas Mountains, and then in Mexico in the Sierra San Luis Mountains, and then maybe some other mountains down there. I'm not sure. But their big factor is climate change. So they live in Arizona anyway, in a relatively low mountain range that doesn't generate its own weather. Storms come in, but it doesn't make storms. So it's drying out, it's getting hotter. As drought continues, it's more susceptible to fire. Anything that lives there more easily desiccate, and that impacts the environment that's there. So they just have less habitat to use, and the only place that they can escape to is to try to find higher elevations. But a mountain isn't like a cartoon where it's like this, it's a bunch of little things. So a lot of those populations, if they go up, it's not like they actually get up to the right elevation they need, and that habitat might not even be there anymore. So very few of them in Arizona, if any, are left, and probably not gonna, last much longer. It's unfortunate. We don't have one of those. It's a federally endangered species, but they're cool. Seen them. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Just want to pop on here while I'm doing some maintenance. Thought I'd share what I'm up to, and I'll do this again. Thanks for watching. I'll see ya.